Hey guys, it's another Monday, so I'm back. Can't get rid of me. Sorry, I love doing this. And I just thought it would be an interesting topic. The world is so cluttered and chaotic right now, and I just thought I'd add to it. I'm not here to clear anything up. I'm probably just going to murky the waters more with my top 10 favorite conspiracy theories right now. If you've never heard of John Dillinger, you're about to. On July 22nd, 1934, in Chicago, Illinois, Dillinger was supposedly exiting the Biography Theater when he was gunned down in cold blood by Charles Winstead of the FBI. Now, this is where it gets weird because a lot of people believe that Dillinger was not killed, but instead it was a doppelganger.
'Tis but a scratch.
As Dillinger was lying on the ground, bleeding, people actually rushed up to dip their trinkets, whatever you want to call them, clothes in his blood to have sort of a macabre kind of souvenir. Why not?
That's disgusting.
But they also noticed that he didn't look like they remembered or pictures that they'd seen of him in the newspaper. Further murkying the waters, Dillinger's autopsy report said that his fingerprints and his dental records were not what they had originally had on file from when he'd been in prison. If this isn't enough, the death mask that was made of them, which is something they did back then, didn't have Dillinger's iconic mole, which was right above his eyebrows. I don't know how maybe that just got blown off his face. Of course, the coroner's report was lost for 50 years and wasn't found until 1984 inside of a random paper bag. Now, in fairness to the FBI, Melvin Pruis did say that they were aware that Dillinger didn't look like he had previously looked, but this was because he had undergone plastic surgery. I don't want to know what that was like in 1934.
You see what I have to work with.
And that was the real reason why he didn't look as everyone had remembered him. Even to this day, the debate rages on whether or not it's Dillinger who was killed, to the point that his descendants have actually petitioned to have his body exhumed, but as of last year, nothing had actually happened. So, forevermore, the debate will probably rage on just who was actually buried in John Dillinger's grave. So I know this one seems obvious among conspiracy theories, but it's a little too big to leave out. On November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was riding through Dallas, Texas in a motorcade when a shot rang out, killing the president. Arrested soon after the assassination was one Lee Harvey Oswald, who was taken into questioning and for hours continued to deny his involvement in the crime. A week after the president's death, the Warren Commission was assembled to look into the assassination and concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald had in fact acted alone and came up with what is known as the magic bullet theory.
Are you kidding me?
If you've never seen the Zabruta film or heard the term back and to the left, this is where it comes from. And basically, if you look at it, it has to be more than one bullet.
It just wasn't happening for me, dog.
A lot of people believe that the magic bullet theory still holds, but actually in 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, kind of a weird committee, they can't use it that much, actually determined that based on eyewitness events, there was a shooter on the grassy knoll. Whoever was on the grassy knoll was dressed in all black and was actually approached by a police officer to question what he was doing there. The person apparently whipped out a badge and claimed that they were with part of the Secret Service. As you can guess, that wasn't the case when they went back and looked at Secret Service records. There was nobody supposed to be stationed on the grassy knoll. So it seems like Oswald didn't act alone, if he was involved at all, because until his death, being transferred out of the prison, he was shot by Jack Ruby, and whatever actually happened went to the grave with him. So we're still left asking the questions, who killed JFK and what was the motive?
The world may never know.
1947 was a strange time for America, as we were still getting back to normalcy from World War II. But it was about to get a whole lot stranger, because on July 8th, a rancher in New Mexico named W.W. Brazel found what appeared to be wreckage from a crash site on his property. Unaware of what to think, he telephoned the local sheriff, George Wilcox, who couldn't make 2 cents of the wreckage either, and thought it would be best to notify the United States government.
I say this calls for action and...
In response to being notified, the government sent out Major Jesse Marcel, along with other men, to collect this weird type of tin foil, which was extremely rigid but extremely bendable and couldn't be broken, and they trucked it away to the nearest base. Immediately, the story was a hit as soon as it was ran in the paper. The idea that we might not be alone, the fact that we might have made contact even with dead aliens, which were supposed to have been found actually at the crash site. Can't confirm that, so I'm not going to actually say definitively. The day after the story ran, the United States government decided to change its story to the fact that it was a failed weather balloon experiment and not an actual flying saucer.
They'll print anything these days.
Ever since then, the debate has raged that the government knows a lot more than they let on about UFOs and UFO technology and extraterrestrial beings. Adding more fuel to the fire was that in 1994, the government came out saying that, yeah, that wasn't actually a crashed weather balloon. It was part of a project called Project Mogul, which was Cold War technology that was designed to spy on the Soviets. So, I'm not here to say one way or the other whether we're alone or not. I just want you to do some deep digging of your own and let me know what you find. So if Area 51's not your speed, this story is for you. Maybe it's a little more concrete. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar came out of secrecy claiming that he had been working for the government at a secret base known as S4, which is only a few miles south of Area 51.
Just a bit outside.
During his tenure at this secret base, Lazar claimed that his job had been to reverse engineer alien spacecrafts. Among Lazar's claims was one that these crafts actually operated using a super heavy element 115, which at the time in 1989 didn't exist and wouldn't be found until 2003.
We ain't scientists.
Part of Lazar's background was supposedly graduating from MIT and Caltech University. However, after going public, both universities had no record of him ever attending there.
I think a detailed letter to MIT might entitle you to a refund.
In addition to both schools, Lazar claimed that he had worked at Los Alamos Nuclear Testing Facility, which was where they actually made the atomic bomb. Now, the same thing happened as the schools, and Los Alamos denied that Lazar had ever worked for them. Unfortunately, people were able to find Lazar listed in the company directory, and they were even able to find newspapers where he was listed as working for the company.
Didn't see that one coming, did you?
To this day, it's still unknown if Lazar is telling the truth, although his story has stayed consistent for almost 30 years. Adding to the puzzlement is the fact that the government has raided his work twice, supposedly looking for the rare element 115, which Lazar is said to have possibly lifted while he was working there for proof should he ever need it. So I don't know what the deal is. Once again, it's up to you to decide, but it's one of my favorites. On July 20th, 1969, the entire nation watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first two men to set foot on the face of the moon.
Holy crap, I am freaking out.
But a lot of people believe that it never actually happened to this day. So why do they think this? Well, for one reason, a lot of people point to the moon landing footage, saying that there's no stars in the background, and that if you were actually on the lunar surface with no atmosphere, you'd easily be able to see stars. A lot of people say that it was actually either filmed on a Hollywood soundstage, or that it was actually filmed in the area surrounding Area 51 again, but that's the reason why you're not allowed to go near the base, because you might recognize the terrain where they filmed it and blow the whole thing up. Another piece of evidence conspiracy theorists point to is the pamphlet written by Bill Kaysing in 1974, which says we never actually went to the moon.
Grab some of this literature too.
Do that.
This is also at a point when the nation was starting to trust the government less, as opposed to in the early and late 60s when government appreciation and trust was at an all-time high. There's still other people who say it's just a little too coincidental that President Kennedy challenged NASA to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, and they were only able to do it with about 5 months left to spare.
Right.
So what do you say? Was mankind's greatest scientific triumph a hoax or not? Located in Monte Rio, California, deep in the redwood forest, is Bohemian Grove. So what is the Bohemian Grove? A 2,700-acre summer camp that's over 150 years old and caters to the most elite men in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach.
The 200 most powerful men are supposedly members, along with celebrities like Jack London, Mark Twain, and Jimmy Buffett.
Really, Mark?
Also, every Republican president since Herbert Hoover has also attended the camp, if not been a member. So it's quite a wrap. Sounds like a good time. But what does it actually take to become a member? Because there are a lot of high-profile visitors, but not all are members. Well, not much is known except being referred by a friend to get in, and $25,000 annual dues. Now, while almost everything about the camp is shrouded in secrecy, the thing that does cause people to be concerned is what's called the cremation of care ceremony. Filmed by Alex Jones, the investigative reporter at one point, the cremation of care ceremony features a human effigy effectively being burned at the foot of a 40-foot tall owl, which is voiced by Walter Cronkite.
And that's the way it was.
So many rich and powerful men gathering in secrecy out of the public eye, many people contend that democracy is not really being served and people are being alienated from their rights in government. To note, it has been proposed that the League of Nations and both the rearming of America during the 1980s were two things that were discussed at this camp with no due process from the American public.
Tell us your thoughts on the League of Nations.
Is the Bohemian Grove just a summer camp for the elite?
Let's do some shots.
Or is it a little more nefarious? You be the judge, I'm just here to deliver the news. So if you've never heard of the Reptilian Elite theory, I'll break it down for you. Effectively, shape-shifting space reptiles at one point in the distant past came to Earth and they never left.
I'm back, baby.
Using their shape-shifting powers, they've been able to infiltrate every aspect of human life to control from the top. From entertainment, to religion, to politics, kings, popes, you name it. Now if you're looking at me saying, this is a little crazy, I don't believe it.
Are you mental?
You don't have to, and it doesn't matter what I think. But 12 million people do believe that this is actually true. So again, if you have a theory, it has to be asked, why? Well, according to the people who believe this, the reptiles came here at one point to Earth in an effort to mine gold, but they didn't feel like getting their hands dirty. To aid them in their quest for gold, they decided that they would engineer human beings to do all their heavy lifting while they reaped the profit.
I love gold.
So, whether you believe it or not, I don't know, but be on the lookout for people that look extra scaly, and you might become a believer yourself.
Next time he's doing something very weird in his raincoat.
On the night of July 14th, 1881, William H. Bonney, better known as Billy the Kid, met his epic demise at the hands of Pat Garrett at Fort Sumner, New Mexico.
I'll make you famous.
Or did he?
Shut up. I ask the questions around here.
While his men were waiting outside for backup, Garrett supposedly shot Billy the Kid while he was interrogating one of his friends. Everything we know about Billy the Kid's death comes from Pat Garrett himself, and there's a lot of people who have problems with the story's consistency.
Something doesn't add up.
According to Garrett's testimony, Billy made every mistake a seasoned outlaw could make. Billy the Kid was no fool, despite being only 21 at the time. More inconsistencies with the story are the fact that Garrett and his men both disagreed on what type of gun Billy the Kid used, and the type of warrant that they showed up with. Now, there is a thread to the story that professes that at one point in the past, Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett had both been ranch hands, and that they had also been very good friends. Because of this story, a lot of people have alleged that Pat Garrett actually said he killed Billy the Kid in an effort to help his longtime friend evade capture and make it to Mexico. The fact that many people claim to have met Billy the Kid after his death in 1881, there's also the fact that in 1983, Pat Garrett's last surviving daughter said that she knew for a fact that her dad had not actually killed the notorious gunslinger. So did Billy the Kid escape justice and grow into William the Man?
Oh, yeah, nice going.
If you've ever been to Denver International Airport, you'll see what a magnificent and large structure it is.
It's beautiful.
And this is point number one as to why conspiracy theorists say there's a problem with it. According to the original budget, the airport came in way over that. And there's no pocket to point to that funded the rest of the building, except the New World Order, which conspiracy theorists say wanted it finished because it is their airport, and that is why there are tunnels and bunkers underneath it.
Speaking of reasonable.
On top of the ground, they actually say that the runways resemble swastikas if you look at them closely enough. I personally don't see it. You do your own due diligence. Also outside the airport is a 30-foot tall sculpture of a blue horse with red eyes known as Lucifer.
Oh, I get it!
A lot of people say that this is a nod to the four horsemen of the apocalypse when the time should come. Inside the airport, there are also things that theorists point to, such as a dedication plaque which thanks a New World Airport Commission, which if you Google it doesn't exist. I'll admit that one's kind of strange.
I don't think you're quite getting the point, dude.
Also inside the airport, the artwork might seem a little violent or apocalyptic.
Notice anything unusual?
I just think it's a little colorful and misguided. But I'm no conspiracy theorist with this one. So if you've ever been to Denver International Airport or you're going there, be sure to check it out. I'd love to know what you think about this supposed NWO fortress. Alright, so what is Flat Earth? Well, if you don't know, it's been a growing movement for, I don't know, I'll say the last 5 or 10 years. And basically, it's grown in popularity to the point that Russell Westbrook and rapper B.O.B. have actually gone on public record saying that they believe the earth is flat and that the governments of the world are lying to us. So there's no real one flat earth theory. It's basically a blanket that basically says we're being lied to.
The world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind.
But there are some facts that most flat earthers can get behind, and those are the ones I'm going to tell you for this.
Well, we're waiting.
The first one is basically, space doesn't exist. We basically just sit there flat, not moving, and that's it. The second would be the sun and the moon are man-made objects and they rotate to give us the appearance that the earth would actually be spinning. But that's not what flat earthers believe. In addition to the sun and the moon, there is also an anti-moon which serves to block out the moon and give the illusion of an eclipse. In addition to this Truman Show-esque kind of world that flat earthers believe we're living in,
Afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Antarctica is not actually a continent, but more of a polar ring that circles the entire flat Earth and is a 150-foot tall ice wall, which serves basically to keep all the water on Earth from spilling out into whatever would be out there.
That we live on a serving tray surrounded by mashed potatoes.
The final point that I can come up with is basically gravity is an illusion to flat earthers, and that the force of gravity is not that something is falling, but that the Earth is rising to meet it. What? Now, flat earthers can't actually give one exact reason why the world's governments would be lying to us about the shape of the Earth, but they do believe it centers around money. One example that they give is that if you had a space program that didn't exist, but we're still drawing money from it, it'd be a lot more profitable than actually having a spaceship that you had to pay all this money to. So that's the flat Earth theory. I don't know if you think it's out of this world.
Everybody's a comedian.
But that's one other conspiracy, and that ends our top 10, guys. Hey guys, just want to thank you for checking out my video. Hopefully you made it to the end. What are your favorite conspiracies? What are ones that I should have put and I didn't? Make sure to comment. If you do any research and you find something out, I'd love to hear it because I love to learn. If you liked the video, if you didn't, make sure to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, give me some feedback. Whatever you do, make sure you subscribe. And to all my crazy diamonds out there, continue to shine on, guys. Have a great week and I'll see you next Monday.